welcome you to BeMoreNews.com, the news before the news, where we uncover the truth.
An accent. We need God. Because only God can bring us out of this mess.
All right. Good morning to you. And it's Father's Day. The good book says, honor thy father, thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. How you doing out there? It's Father's Day. Make sure you go outside and get some of that good sunshine. Oh my goodness, my dog dragged me outside this morning. I was so glad he did. I looked up and the weather was just perfect. So we're hitting you hard this morning. Critical topic. Critical. And very apropos for today. A lot of people did not have good daddies. And I'm sorry for you. I'm reminded that what happens to us in childhood, any trauma, hey Mike, is not our fault. Anything we experience, the things that happen to us, some were much worse than others. But none of it is our fault. However, as adults, it is our responsibility to get the necessary healing. Maddie! Michael Randolph, Manny Price, Sandtown legends. Even though Manny, an East Baltimore cat, he worked over here in Sandtown back in the mid-90s. Happy Father's Day, Manny. Happy Father's Day, Mike. I read some stats. First, I looked up fatherlessness in America, statistics. Interestingly, the first thing that comes up is a statement from 2021. There are 1.8 million solo dads in the U.S. Statistics on absent fathers. Shows that 7 million American dads were absent from the life of all their minor children. 7 million. Now, it's 400 million people here, right? It was 350 million. And so those stats were they threw me a bit. So I just went on, got straight to the jugular of what I wanted to know. Children in single parent families by race in the United States. Long story short, we are at 64% in the Black community, 64% fatherlessness. And it's been pretty consistent since 2010. 2010, 66%, 2011, 67%, 67% for 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, 66%, 2017, 2018, 65%. So it's been going down a tad over the past decade, believe it or not. Interestingly, in the 40s, in the 50s, the Black community was the most married community out there. I grew up in a married household. Father, mother, me. I think I had to be in my 40s when it really dawned on me. With all due respect, that most of the kids I grew up with did not have a father. You know, we don't realize how blessed we are. Sometimes until it's too late. But if you got a mama, you got a daddy, try to build a bridge with them. Try to enjoy them. Try to enjoy them. Good morning, Loretta, for those who don't have one. But I had a good daddy, and we had a lot of fun. But before I get to that, so if we got 65, 66, 67% fatherlessness in the Black community, is there any wonder why Black America's off the hook? Here's another fact, and it was very, very troubling. They talked about the murders in America. 53 over. Now listen, we make up 15% of the population, roughly. But we are over 53% of the murder victims in this country. How in the hell does that happen? Whew. Startling, sobering. Over 53% of the murder victims are us. Dave Lovelace, happy Father's Day. That's very troubling. As a Black man, we are an endangered species. Fathers are an endangered species. And if your father, or even if you're not, if you're just a man in the community without children, quite often you're a father to somebody else's children. There are people on here right now I know who have fathered many people. Not physically, but they have fathered. They've made sure these people went to school, got an education, learned to read, learned to write, learn the Lord's Prayer. You know, fathers know to step in and to give you the tools and skills you need to survive. That's what fathers do. And again, I'm sorry for those who did not have a good daddy, but I had a wonderful daddy. A daddy. He was very serious, but he also liked to have a lot of fun. It's all about having fun. He used to say all the time, and I don't know why. He said, "We don't have a lot of money, but we sure have a lot of fun." But that was kind of a pun, because back in the 60s and 70s, he was doing just fine. Although Black fathers have a high percentage of missing on paper stats, don't tell the entire story. Missing Black fathers are most involved. Missing Black fathers are most involved in their kids' lives. You might have to explain that. Hey, Dave, I ain't. It's too early. Got me doing all this reading. You want to come in here, Dave? You know the studio. But fatherlessness in the Black community is devastating. When you look at Baltimore, you look at our city, our hometown, Baltimore. And I see the young men out here on dirt bikes. When I see grown men on dirt bikes, I'm all for fun. Couldn't ride dirt bikes when I was a kid. It was illegal. My mother, my father, they weren't having any of it. And none of the kids in my block had a mini bike. Now, some people around the corner, they called them mini bikes back then. Around the corner had mini bikes. And it didn't work out well for them in the long run. See, it starts with the parents and the daddy. The daddy sets the tone. The daddy sets the tone. He sets the tone. And it is the father's job to instill the fear of God in their child by any means necessary. That's the generation I grew up in. And a hind part whipping was not out of the question. Very, very much a possibility. Get the running off at the mouth, did something you weren't supposed to. Yeah, that was corporal punishment. That's the generation I came from. Today, you look at a kid wrong, I'm throwing you under the jail. I know if the daddy don't jack him up, if the daddy don't instill the fear of God in him, he leaves it for the police and the correctional officer. That's an unspoken rule in the black community. That's why black mothers don't play. Because they rather put it on you now than had to be going to court. And court is a reality. Just saw a man yesterday, went to court Friday. It's a serious matter. And getting over that jail ain't no joke. These people push for bail reform, which killed the black bail industry. Killed it. Killed it. That was a viable industry. You had some black liberals out there who clearly don't understand the ecology of the black community. Killed the whole bail system. So this is what it is now. If for any reason you have a track record of some sort, you could be sitting over that jail on a humble for 8 months before you even go to court. That's the way the new system is. Some people get out immediately on recognizance. Others get no bail. You sitting here. And what does that mean for a 56-year-old person like myself? God forbid. It means you sitting over the jail with some hoppers who running things. Is that where you want to be? But that's where we've come to. America has 5% of the world's population, but 25% of the world's inmates. Over half of them look like me. Over half the murder victims look like me. Being black in America is not a game. It's not a game. Yeah, it's sad. It's the harsh reality. And if we don't get a grip on our young men, and so there are multiple factors. And before I get into the daddy and the mommy, let me just say it took 2 to make them. It took 2 to raise them. That's why God gave you a mother and a father. Every human being on the planet Earth, unless you're a test tube, has a mother and a father. Even if they get that sperm from somebody they don't even know, everybody has a mother and a father. Facts of life. Facts of life. Everybody has a mother and a father. It took 2 to make them. And in my community, in my culture, that's a word that's being moved around. Culture. What is our culture? What do we value? In my culture, the daddies have an important role, a critical role. Lost my train of thought there for a second. Thinking about the culture, thinking about that Kendrick Lamar talking about the culture. Starts out saying, I come from a culture of pain, a generation of pain. We come from a generation of pain. Crack babies, lead paint, babies increase because a lot of lead paint is still in our environment. It's only getting worse. A lot of these young men out here today grew up in lead households filled with lead, or maybe a parent had an addiction, alcoholism, incarceration. When you add in the drugs, we can't leave out the drugs, crack, the dope, the coke. They put these drugs in the black community. I was talking to Ron Lax on this show, Henrietta Lax's grandson, and he was talking about heroin coming to Baltimore and why they brought heroin. Remember, Baltimore has always been an historically strong black city. We had the largest population of free blacks prior to the Civil War. So Baltimore's always been strong when it comes to the black community. We've always had strong leaders like George McMecken and Ashby Hawkins, who hung foot up in that mayor called J. Barry Mahou, better known as the father of segregation. Baltimore's housing policies were then replicated around the country because Baltimore was so good at segregation. That's apartheid. That's what Nelson Mandela fought against in South Africa, but it exists here. It's America's original sin. Fatherlessness in the Black community. How do we fix it? It took two to make them. It take two to raise them. I got it. I found my train of thought. In our culture, we say it takes a village to raise a child. Manny Price, a part of my village of people who raised me on this show. The village. Man, he took me to Canada one day. Dropped me off right there at the Niagara River. Kind of reminds me of what happened to me in the Middle East. Driving down the road, somebody said, there's Cairo, there's Egypt, there's Africa. Man, he dropped me at the Niagara River, said that's where Harriet Tubman crossed to get into Canada. And 2 weeks after that trip, man, he said to me, can you imagine how many people died crossing that river? Oh my God. Harriet Tubman went all the way from Maryland. And it's interesting. I gotta say this on Father's Day. Black people learn to read between the lines. Back in my days of public education in Baltimore City public schools, and I don't know that we were the 5th highest funded school system in the country. I know I got an excellent education. My mind's all over the place. Education must be important. We must learn. We must learn to use context clues. We must learn that everything that's presented is not the entire picture. I think someone alluded to that earlier. We got to learn to read between the lines. Read what they're not saying. Read what's not put out there. There's been a war ever since we first interacted with the European on these shores. There were Black people already here. Not all Black people came in the bottom of a slave ship. We have to learn that when we had grandmothers who were Indians, we may have to learn that there was so much more history to be understood than just what somebody has told us. Go look up your own history. Go look up ancestry.com. I'm checking it out right now, learning about my great-grandmother and her daddy. A lot of history we need to know. A lot of history that we come from. But we got to look it up and know it so that we can pass it on to our children and grandchildren. We're losing generations before us, our grandparents, our parents. We got to write down those things our parents told us so that we can pass them on to our children. How else will they know their story, their history? I struggle with it every day. There's so much I want to teach my children about their history, so much to unpack, to unfold. See, you want to come in and mess up the show, you got bad connection today. You got one of them jacked up systems. From the man who told me that I had some streaming problems. So I celebrate the fathers, whether they got kids or not, men who have been fathers in the community. David Miller comes to mind. Alexis Coates, great daddy. Hassan Giordano, don't agree with nothing he said politically, but he's a great daddy. I've seen him spend time. I know a lot of dudes some dudes who have total, full custody of their children. And that's a glorious sight. A guy I grew up with named Ron. Ron lived down the street, raised his boys right down the street from East Baltimore, but he raised them over here. Some good daddies out there. Let me say this. There's some bad daddies. There's some fathers who have raped their daughters. I said it. I said it right here. There are some fathers who rape their daughters. What a rotten ass person to rape anybody, but then your own child. There's a special place in hell for such. Special place in hell. As I've gotten older, I've learned to listen a little bit more. And the more I've listened to women over the years, the more I've realized that so many women have been abused. Many have been molested, sexually abused. I know women who have been in the military. I know one who had no problem whatsoever. But there are countless situations of women in the military. I was watching a movie about a woman who was in a war zone, a captured pilot. This is a new reality, women in war situations. Personally, I can't stomach it. I can't stomach to know that a woman is out there in a war zone and not protected. You'd have to seriously convince me that you're going to survive. And there have been many women gladiators, women warriors over the years. In Ethiopia, women helped save their country's independence, or from being taken over, because Ethiopia's always been independent, minus 2 years of Mussolini fighting that Italian. In Ethiopia, you know, they carved up all of Africa, 54 countries. Ethiopia is the only one to remain non-colonized. Some people say Liberia has never been colonized, but it's an American colony, Liberia and Sierra Leone. All right, let's see what Chap gonna bring to this conversation. Did he messed up my flow? What's up, man?
Good morning, brother. Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day to you too. You got 2 black sons.
I do. And then I got 22,000 across the city of Baltimore. Don't forget them. Don't make me name them all.
Yeah, we'll name them all. You got 22,000 kids.
Shoot. Pee-wee, Savage, Elijah, Nolan, of course, Dougie and Charlie, my blood. See, Evan Jr., Big Mike, Micah. Let's see, TJ and Teron.
Oh, come on, man. What's your thoughts on Father's Day, man?
Man, my thoughts are this, man, because a lot of times stats can be deceiving. So my point was this, that even though on paper we can be documented as fatherless for the purpose of documenting data and stats, it's my belief that specifically regarding the Black community, we're actually the most involved in our kids' lives, because it doesn't show, stats don't show that the fathers are probably most likely living with their kids or involved heavily in their kids' lives. But it just shows that we're not on birth certificates or we're not on marriage certificates where a lot of that data is drawn. So I think it's exaggerated. The numbers are exaggerated to tell whatever story they want to tell. But if you are in the culture and in the homes, you can see that, I think one of the stats I read, and I don't know how they collected the data, was that in the Black community, specifically regarding other demographics, they had the most fathers in the home with the kid, regardless of marital status.
So tell me about fatherhood from your perspective.
I had a rough story, bro. Back in the day, not to glorify anything, but back in the day, I was a drug boy, and my first wife married for that lifestyle. Turned my life around, and my son was about 3 years old, and she didn't sign up for that. So she spitefully emptied the bank account and took my son, and I didn't see him for like another 10 years. After
was
that,
that like?
that was it was traumatic, man. I had to find a personal revelation that the sons I produced were God's sons, and it was my privilege to raise him for a season, but God had other plans for him. Now, my track record and my behavior led to this happening again. So, my second wife um, married a black lady in Florida, and I had two sons. I raised them to about 3 and 5, and then the same thing. Just trauma affected our family. And she came up to Baltimore when we split. She came up to Baltimore, took my sons back to Florida, and I didn't see them for like 10 years. And I don't know, man. It was just traumatic. It was a lot to process. It's a real long story, but my sons in front of me, my blood sons, were removed from me, and um, I take responsibility for part of that because I didn't
That's the
understand.
part I wanted to hear.
Yeah,
Let's get to.
I didn't understand the process or feel like I had the resources to navigate the legal system to get them back or even get custody. And the mothers knew more about the legal system than I did to prevent me from seeing my sons. My first wife.
That's something going against the person who knows how to use the law better than you.
Absolutely. So
Let me say that again. It is something not to be glossed over when you go to court, whether you're right or wrong. You in court going against someone who has done this before, and this is your first rodeo.
Yeah, so I'll share with you my first wife. She became a paralegal. Learned like I was in the Navy. I served on back to back two boats. So I went out to sea for like 6 months straight, back to back, trying to do good at my job and be successful for my family. While that happened, she left. She became a paralegal in a Commonwealth state where they had laws that were written specifically if. So she moved to Virginia, and the laws there specifically were written in a way that she could claim I was abandoned through a certain legal process. I abandoned the family so that I had no legal rights for visitation ever, or custody. So that was a struggle with the first wife. And I didn't know how. Like I said, I didn't have money to hire a lawyer. I didn't know how to navigate the system or appeal. And I was at sea serving my country when this happened. But she claimed because I was at sea, I wasn't getting my mail and stuff, and so she claimed that I just abandoned the family. It was frustrating, and it was really the first time something like that I'd ever experienced the treachery. The second time, my second wife came up and told the police I kidnapped the kids. So she had been locked up in Florida. So I moved back to where I had a support system and family. I didn't have a lot of family in Florida, so I moved back to Baltimore. And when she got out, she drove up here and told the cops I kidnapped the kids. And the cops, without any paperwork at the time, 2008, told me that I was going to be arrested if I didn't let her take her kids. And then I didn't see them again for like 10 some years. And again, I just didn't have, I mean, they're like 800,000 miles away in Florida, so I can't just go drop and see them. Although she's like, see them anytime you want. Who has resources? Just, okay, I'm going to go to Florida and go see my kids. And then when we set stuff up.
I gotta jump in here and say something. I've met a lot of women over the years, and I've always admired those women. Now, I want you to hear me on this. Women who, although the daddy was, let's say, wasn't admirable, they never slammed him. They never talked bad about him in front of the children.
My second wife, I can say she didn't talk bad. She just made it difficult for me to actually see them. And
none of that. None of that.
But she did. She never talked bad about me.
I'm not talking about her. I'm talking about what I call the gold standard, where they could, but they got too much class for that. Now, some people looking for a reason to go to child support on you. Let me tell you what I told them. I don't need no white man, white woman, black. I don't need nobody to tell me how to take care of my children. I told them then, I tell them now. I don't need you to tell me how to take care of my child. But when you go down there and you get them courts and you bring them into your situation,
that's your new daddy.
yeah, it's a whole new scenario. And for a cat who over to jail, you trying to be a father from being locked up, you are really, you're off the chessboard. Not saying you can have a report. And if you want to join us, I'll put the link in the chat here. I don't want to dominate the conversation. I want to get Fatima and Fatima. Fatima La, these are critical conversations. Love the conversations that will heal and move us upward and forward. We can be so much more. It's in us. So we got a lot of healing to do, a lot of forgiving to do also of the other person, because, love, I've talked about drugs, alcohol. Love is a drug too. Woo. You ever had one of them relationships that was tumultuous?
Toxic.
Toxic.
Yes.
I've been a part of the problem. I'm working today to be a part of the solution.
Well, look, I wanted to share with you guys too with my narrative, and I won't unpack any more of it except to say that my son
already started now. Don't stop now.
Well, my sons live with me now, and the first thing that I had to share with them was to ask for their forgiveness, because had I been more, and for whatever reason, whether it was the trauma or anything like that, I could have done more as a father to get the job done, go get them, bring them home, or work something out. And I just felt overwhelmed. I felt powerless. I felt I just didn't have it at the time. I didn't have it in me and didn't understand even where to begin.
So I want you to relate this to what you see in Baltimore right now. Is there a correlation? Right now, we see shootings in Baltimore through the roof. Everybody's strapped. Police are in a...
I got 12-year-olds down McElderry that are strapped. It's people don't understand. If you're not from Baltimore, you really don't understand the culture.
What do you mean?
I mean, like if you go to a little playground at the school on North Patterson, over east, you got to know that the children on the playground are strapped. They're packing. And if I take for instance, there's groups that come and try and help in the community, not from Baltimore, but they have a heart. They see the need and want to serve. You have to explain to them, okay, these people that you're serving, they are carrying weapons, and you just need to be aware of that and how you engage them. If you're not from here, you just need to keep those things in mind. I mean, 12-year-olds, what do they need a gun for? What's anybody really need a gun for? That's my question.
People carry guns out of fear.
Right. If you get down to it, I don't carry a gun. So why does someone get to the point where they feel like they need a gun?
Fear. They're afraid.
How's a gun going to help?
Television. Television. We about to get some special sauce here today. This is the conversation. My man, 500 grand. Manny Price. Matter of fact, I got 2 Capricorns on here right now. 2 Capricorns. Lord have mercy.
Hey, Donnie. Good to meet you. Good to hear you, man.
Happy Father's Day.
Thank you. The same to you both. Happy Father's Day, Donnie, chap. Being a father is a struggle, man. But it's a struggle, blessed by God. It's a true, wonderful thing to do. No matter the obstacles, no matter what's going on, no matter the pain. And it doesn't matter whether you're a father by birth or a father because you choose to reach out, support, help, and do whatever you can to nourish the children. And I'm particularly fond of, as Donnie says, and as all my grandkids and stuff tell me, the culture. But any child is a part of the culture to me. It's a child. Sometimes they need guidance. My father, he come from the era when industrial America was just beginning to collapse. Before that era, our black men, even though they lived through segregation, stuff that was still needed for their fierce ability to labor. And America used them in the steel mills, in all the factories and stuff. And to a degree, if you lived in certain areas in the Middle East of America and North and Northwest, you could have a decent life for your family, working at Sparrows Point, working at Getz's, meat packing, SK meat packing. Those were the places the men in my community worked in East Baltimore and stuff, and they did well by their families. They still with dad. They're going to go out and party Friday night and do their thing. But their children ate, and they made sure they were there to sit in the most part with them. And then I still remember, that's one of my fondest memories of my father, despite all the other things. We would sit down for dinner, say the Lord's Prayer, eat, and enjoy. And then those days.
What happened? What happened to that?
And then I'm gonna tell you, Donnie, part of it was this. Several things.
Microwave ovens.
No, not that, Donnie. The Industrial Revolution changed. We went from an industrial economic society to a service economic society and a financial economic society. Of course, most black men were not equipped to transition into that. Most of them didn't have an education in that way. They were very smart, very educated in what they needed to survive in the world. But when it came to this new service community and economic community, they weren't ready for it. And being somebody's almost in a service economy for low wages and it was almost like being a sharecropper again. And they couldn't tolerate it, plus the jobs weren't there. Secondly, we had the civil rights movement and the economic movement that came with that. And what happened was, under those plans, they looked at a man who would not serve in that service community or could not find a job in that service community as, we shouldn't be supporting him without government logics. He had to move out the household, which destroyed a lot of families. Then came the criminalization of the black male for doing things that now the white man is making billions of dollars off. Marijuana and stuff like that. Another issue. So that's what happened to our family. That's why the fathers weren't there to feed, to lead their children. And like your man, Chap said, later on, they just started sneaking around and ignoring the government and being there. But that lack of consistency, that lack of constantly being there, that necessity to drop in and out, just destroyed and disrupted the black family to a large degree that we're still trying to recover from. But I will say this, I see so much positivity in how our young black men are trying very hard to be a part of their children's families, no matter what. I've seen it growing year and year exponentially. And it didn't happen, that destruction, in less than decades. So don't think one of my god kids now banging on the door, hollering my name. Hold on a sec.
Go ahead, man. So, comment, Donnie. Part of that, like you said, is government. When we bring the court into our relationship, the government becomes our daddy, right? And now daddy's paying the rent for a lot of our single moms. But if the father's name's on the lease, then sometimes they don't meet the requirements to get housing, right? So it's just another way.
They come by to show that love on Father's Day. Kids, you just help. He walks in the door. You on Donnie Glover's show live.
Hey, how y'all doing? Happy Father's Day.
Right.
Hey, how you feeling?
Doing good.
You good?
Good.
I'm just stopping by, drive past the house. I said, I'm going to go holler Manny Price, man.
All right, man. I love
Forever
you.
my father, man.
All right, I love you.
Love you, all right?
All right.
All right, y'all have a good one. Enjoy y'all day.
All right. Y'all see what I'm talking about, man? Yeah, me do it. See what I'm talking about? And that's a village. And if I told you Brian's story, I'd rather for him to come on air one day and tell y'all what he went through, and I never abandoned him.
Was that Brian?
Huh?
Was that Brian?
Yeah, that's Brian, Donnie. Little Brian.
That's the first time I've seen him.
Yeah, since he's been home. 3 years home now, doing great. You know, I took him. I never. Yeah. Donnie.
How old is he now?
Oh man, he's got to be 34.
Wow,
About that.
man.
God is good, man. If you have men who stick with you. I made them long rides to the Eastern Shore, to undergird him and give him strength. I made them long rides up to Western Maryland, to undergird him and keep him strong.
This
matter what.
This lady pulled me up about a week ago, said, who you know out in Arizona? I'm like, what? Lady come up to me out the clear blue. Who you know in Arizona? I'm like, huh? She was related to the house you were out there visiting.
Donnie, you talking about Shaquetta and them.
Smoking.
My grandmother, yeah. Same story as mine. She coming to get me today at 2:30.
Manny Chap, how do we heal our city? Please tell us. If the mayor's watching, the police commissioner, the state's attorney, if they watching right now, what would you tell them?
Wow, Donnie. That's all over the place because it's not one thing that can heal our city.
But I think at the center of it, Mr. Price, is love.
Go ahead.
Whatever we're doing out here, I think at the center of it, we gotta love, man. I was
gonna get to that. It's. I agree with you, Chad. It's a whole bunch of issues that must be addressed in their individuality, but also in a cooperative and uniform way. But the primary thing, we have to have faith and we have to believe and we have to have a spirituality about ourselves. And I don't care if you're Christian, Jewish, Muslim, Buddhist, agnostic, I don't care. Just have that faith and instill that in your children, because what that gives them is a uniform. Because if you look at all the tenets of all them type religions and sects, the basic structure of how to live your life is almost identical.
Yeah, don't lie, don't steal, don't kill nobody,
right.
Don't mess with nobody's wife, don't take nobody money.
Right. So you instill that in your children, you instill that in your people, and it grows and it moves and it pushes them. We spend too much time, and I heard both of y'all allude to it today, and I'll say it outright. This white people feel a philosophy about how you raise a child is not proper for our community. They took away our ability to discipline our children. What did they think the outcome was going to be? And don't think they didn't know what the outcome was going to be. Don't give them a pass. Don't give them a pass.
I'm proud of you, Manny. Normally, you're more reserved.
But yeah, Donnie. But the critical issue of raising our children doesn't allow for being reserved. Doesn't allow for that anymore. And to the mayor, who I consider one of my kids that I watched grow up, and I remind them to remember what they went through and grow up. And don't look at someone as who doesn't look at you, have that complexion of you, that soul of you, as the sole source that can fix who we are, because that is a critical error.
Of any of us being racist.
Right? No, it's not about anybody can be racist, black, white, it doesn't matter. Depends on, and some of it can be issue-related racism, some of it can be soul-related racism, some of it can be systemic racism. So racism is not something that's exclusive to anybody, but no, in the context of talking about looking into ourselves as a people to accomplish the true resurrection of our people, no, that is not racist. No, not at all. It's a self-reliance that we had. It's an education of our children. All of y'all 45 and older can still remember when we had black educators, when they said our system was so segregated, but they taught us. They made us excel. And then they brought in, if you look at a lot of our schools, in our communities and stuff, the majority of the educators don't look like us. Are you kidding me? How do you expect them to come from a culture that's not like our culture, and I mean good and bad about our culture, and understand how to correct and raise and discipline our children? I think it's a near impossibility.
Let me comment on that, Mr. Price, because so myself being perceived as white and serving in Baltimore City, I volunteer in the schools. Pre-COVID, I volunteered in juvenile detention centers, and not to say that there aren't people from our community out there doing it alongside me, but I felt very strongly as I unpacked, the young men we serve and built relationships. I realized the need for people that look and sound like them to be in front of them doing the same thing I was doing. And not to say people aren't out there. We needed more. They needed to see it more. They needed to see where, if I go into a space where no one knows who I am, and I'm in front of some young black men who I may be mentoring or trying to build a relationship with, it just takes once they get to know me and they know who I am, they know I'm ride or die for them, right? They're family. But all that time spent trying to build the relationship to be able to speak into their lives. If someone that looks like them, talks like them, knows where they're from, in the same neighborhoods and stuff, someone like that,
therapeutic value, therapeutic value of one helping another. But Chap, if you had the mayor's ear, because we're almost done, if you had the mayor's ear, what would you tell him, the governor, the state's attorney, whomever's in elected office? What would you tell them to fix the city of Baltimore right now? Is it lock everybody up? Is it hit everybody on dirt bikes, hit them with a car, knock them out the box? Is it take their mother's benefits? Is it cut their mother off? What is it? What's the solution to Baltimore right now?
Sadly for Baltimore, I wouldn't even ask them for support. I'd say just get out of our way. The people that are in the communities doing what we do, just don't impede us. Just stay out the way. Let us do what we do, and the city will thrive.
I would say to Chap and you, Donnie, Chap's a little right. You got to let the people on the ground give them more support, because they're interacting every day. You're just sitting up there talking about how you interact every day. No, I'm not a safe street fan. I'll say that.
No.
Neither am
I think that model is not good for Baltimore.
Thank you.
That model is not good for Baltimore.
You're good
And
for Baltimore.
it's the organization at this point is, I'm not gonna say it's corrupt, but it's too influenced where it cannot do the job it originated to do.
Proven in court.
So I'm not a fan of that. I think it may be some good people, but we're wasting a lot of money. Now, that being said, what I would say, economics play a huge importance in the resurgence of households because it takes away a lot of stress and stuff that they wouldn't have. What they should talk about doing in a majority of black city, let me take that back. Stop talking about doing and do it actionable is build wealth in our communities, structural wealth. They keep whining about we can't enforce set-asides and stuff by law and stuff. They're a liar. They're lazy. They're afraid of a white man. What do you got to be afraid of? They done enough to have people fight them. Put it in law. Make them go to court and tell you it's not right. Or let the Supreme Court and all them tell you that, oh, that's not exactly that way. And then every way they tell you, you tweak it until as our people steadily gain an economic strength. If you look at the grants that have been put out lately and stuff, it's the same people. The Struve brothers, Eccles and Rouse. The Baltimore partnerships that run Bernie, they all white controlled and own the Bernie funds and stuff. And we gloss it over like it's not true. Stop glossing it over. Address the true economic issues that can build families back in our communities, and you will see change evolving.
So doesn't that mean
That's what I would say.
Doesn't that mean we need some accountability? Because it's
your volume went down, Donnie.
Can you hear me, Chad?
Yeah.
Your volume went down, so I can't hear you as well.
Okay. Go ahead, Chad.
Well, just speak. I can hear bits, but not all.
No, my thing is, again, like, to the mayor, to the commissioner, learn who the people in the community are. And just when you hear their name come up in a meeting or for a permit or something, just green light it. You hear Chuck Lee, you hear Lewis Thomas, Donnie Glover, you hear Emmanuel Price, Yolanda Pulley.
It might be a national model. It don't mean it worked.
Right. When you
exactly, I agree with that too.
When you hear these names pop up and they're doing stuff in the city, to the mayor, to the commissioner, and them, just recognize the names and just if I'm doing something, just give me the green light and trust the people of Baltimore that we know what our people need because we're out here every day.
Let me try it again. Manny, a lot of nonprofit.
And one more thing I'd like to say, Donnie. One more thing I'd like to say, Chapman, Donnie. And when I'm speaking of this to my young political leadership in Baltimore, I'm not doing this out of anger, hatred, jealousy in it. I'm doing this out of saying to you, as a man with years of experience politically, government, in the streets, in community, that I've seen it and I couldn't accomplish it, but y'all control every branch of the legislature and the leadership in the city. Y'all can do it. I'm saying it to bring it out to the light, not to hide it. Y'all can change that structure, that finance. Take the fight, take the war, take the court cases. Let them tell you can't do it. If you look at all the financial departments in the city that have the most financial control, their majority run by white people.
What about the schools?
That control the money. The school system is disruptive. Sometimes, even though the leadership may look like us, that's not good enough. It's time to make some changes and take the whipping that you take to do it, but do it for our children. That leadership there is not good.
And not from Baltimore.
Hey man,
and
I got a question.
And dislike of Miss Sandalisa or anything. I think she's a smart lady and stuff, but that don't mean she's capable of implementing the changes that need to be done. And sometimes you have to find a person who can implement more than a person who can theorize.
I think we
That's
need
what you
somebody
need.
with their own child in the school system to bring skin in the game. But
Yeah,
Wow.
it helps when your child is in the school system
you
because
damn right.
you don't want them not educated
Yeah.
properly.
Yeah.
And you feel the pain that their fellow students and stuff feel when they come home and tell you. So yeah, that does help a lot.
They send all
Tremendous.
their kids to private school.
Private school.
Say that again, Donnie.
They send their kids to private school.
I
Okay.
know.
Okay.
I
All right.
know.
Well, I'm gonna wrap it up. Any final thoughts?
Just big shout out to all them fathers who are doing the best they can despite all the obstacles. A big shout out to those of all races who contribute to the goodness, health, and kindness of the world. I just want to express my love and gratitude and thank God for all of those people and everything. That's what I got to say.
All right, chap.
I love you guys, man. I pray that everybody can enjoy their day today.
Good deal. I gotta go check some phone calls. Happy Father's Day to you.
Happy Father's Day, everyone. Peace and blessings.
Peace and blessings. See you next time.
Bye.